Well, all right. So the point of this today is that we just made some really big updates to Strata Protocol, and we're in the process right now of releasing it. So more or less, this is about me going over some of the different things that we've added and updated to it because we think it's super important to go through. So I'm actually going to share my screen with this. All right, so this is actually on top of the VPS, and this is going to mostly just be showcasing some of the different things that we've got inside of it. Whenever I do this, I obviously do it as a back test. We haven't went live with this yet. We actually just managed some of the code last night. But in the original version of Strata Protocol, we had some pretty straightforward options for what you can do, setting things such as account balances and account targets. And then we have what's called our confluences. This is actually what determines when it takes a trade. You have confluence 1, confluence 2, confluence 3. These two are adjustable to your sensitivity settings. So depending on the time frame that you're trading on, you can determine how many trades you take and how strong you want the signal to be. Obviously, lower settings on this one would mean that the sensitivity is much lower. So it takes more trades along those lines of it. And obviously, if it's increased, it takes less trades. That also adjusts with the time frame that you're on. And then confluence number 3 is just a checkbox of whether or not it would use it. Pivot strength is actually tied into, we do a lot of structure-based trading with Strata Protocol because we trade a lot of NQ and MEQ, which structure is typically respected. So what that determines is the pivot point is how we place things such as our stop losses. So in other words, as market goes up and down, well, actually, let's just pull this up to make it make sense. As market goes up and down here, and then it obviously rejected off of this and pulled up, this could be considered a pivot point. So like if I were to take a trade here, just for instance, this could become my stop loss inside it because it is a pivot point inside when the market made a shift and a structure change. But the idea behind that is just being able to adjust the sensitivity of it. So you're looking for either really strong structure points or really light structure points. We had originally included things that were things like our daily limits, how much you can lose, how much you can profit. We gave an option inside here, which was our fixed ticks orders. And you can use it as a set stop loss, set profit for what you're doing. We use this one primarily whenever we're going into things such as trying to pass evals because we're just trying to set those ticks to be able to hit that profit margin for what it is. Our floating limits was added inside this as well. It's really good for when you're trying to trail profits. Our position sizing, which makes it a little bit different, we have what's the fixed contract, so you can trade the same size contract every time. And then we actually added dynamic setting, which is risk per trade. This is a fantastic feature whenever you're trying to manage live capital because typically when you trade, you're not simply setting how many contracts you're using. You're basing your contract on your dollar amount that you would use inside the trade. I'm only going to risk 1% per trade. So that way I know where my volume is at. And this automatically changes the contract size inside the trade to make it fit that. We added an option inside here, which was simulated equity. And this is primarily used for back testing when we're trying to figure out our prop firms. So we can actually set the account size here and all of our trades will be based off of that. So when we're trading 1% of this, we know it's a $500 per trade idea that we're doing. We give options in the high side here for our trade management, which was TP1 and TP2. So because we do, once again, a lot of risk management, entry point happens and you get a stop loss here, and then you're going to aim for a 1-to-1. So TP1 is a 1-to-1, TP2 is a 1-to-2, and it automatically adjusts that inside of it. Our options inside this were break even and our enable trailing stop. And that was important for us because we wanted the ability to say, when we get above our target at a certain point, we want to be able to bring up our break even point, obviously protect our capital, and then enable trailing stop once we start to make those bigger moves. But the key in this one is giving enough room to let the asset run. Trade window, which is our time frame filter that we have set to take certain trades during certain times, only trade during certain hours. And obviously, you're going to have things such as your asset, your time frames, and so forth like that, as well as our back date. So those were the typical settings that we had originally for Strata Protocol. And if we use nothing else inside of it, we can adjust how well it performs. So let's just run this as a back test here. And this is actually run over through March and April. Inside of it, so you can see where our profits were and what our equity curve looked like. So obviously, towards the end of the month, things got pretty hairy, and we can tell that from here, just inside of these bigger losses that we have. Now, You can obviously adjust this just as easily and be able to, oh, this is our range filter that we add inside of it to help stop whenever prices simply range inside of it to avoid the chop. But again, adjusting just the confluence sensitivity changes the way the equity curve is. It changes the amount of profits you can do. And again, because we're typically trading this on prop firms, you can tell exactly how our equity changed. We got all the way up to $2,000 here, and then we started doing some losses, which brought it back down. We wouldn't have got canceled out of that when we managed our trades. But again, the whole point in this is that we know that when we hit this area here, we would actually been taking payouts, and so we would have missed these trades until that was done. But again, just changing the sensitivity by itself inside of here adds a very different equity curve that you have. And this particular asset's MNQ, and we're trading on the 5-minute chart. So you see clearly too sensitive, didn't really work out in our favor. But I can also go back inside of this and change it to settings such as this. And then I can do things such as our range filter. So with the range filter, when it's on, it looks for these ranging patterns to make sure that you're not taking trades inside the chop. And then we have our signal memory that we use. So in other words, if it's trading inside the range, and let's say you get a buy signal during the range and then it breaks out above it, it'll take the breakout above it because it already had confluence that there was a signal placed inside of that. So that's one of the reasons that we use this. You can obviously turn that off. And it just, again, you may trade the chop, and it just adjusts the ability to manage that as well. But clearly you can see that it does sometimes work out in the favor just based on what you're doing inside of it. So now we have that. What we've done though with Strata is we've added in some really cool and really interesting additional filters. So part of the idea behind this was not to create something that was one and done. It gets set up and you turn it on and it just runs forever, because we know that the market shifts and adjusts accordingly. You can think of that when tariffs came out. You can tell about when the war with Iran started. So all these different geopolitical things, we can't manage them. And so the idea behind this was to simply make sure that we're not getting fake breakouts and that we're adjusting it inside the parameters that we can actually control. So we've added things inside of this, such as a higher time frame filter. So what happens is again, I'm showing you this as a live test for what it is inside of it. Just keeping this turned on with our sensitivities, no range filter, as it is, you can see exactly what our profit margins look like. You can tell exactly what our equity curve looked like and so forth. And you can tell what our daily wins and losses were. So simply by turning on the higher time frame filter. So it adjusted higher time frame minutes, the fast EMA and the slow EMA on the higher time frame. And then I can run the same type of risk or analysis for that one. You can tell it did just as well where it smoothed out some equity curve, and it's just adjusting to that one filter, which again is allowing us to adjust on the fly to how many trades we're taking, what our days look like, and so forth inside of it. And you can tell we actually did pretty well. And then I can also use these in conjunction with each other, so I can test each one of these out with this confluence setting to see exactly what happens with it. So this one is a VWAP distance. So as price moves away from the daily VWAP, it would determine if it would take a trade or not in that direction because of how far away it's from the VWAP. So here's another example. Once again, smoothing out a lot of this equity curve that we have. It doesn't mean we don't take losses. We're simply managing how much of a loss we take. And you can tell it takes far fewer trades with that scenario by itself. So again, we have the VWAP from distance, and then we actually have a volume filter, which helps us filter out fake outs. So that way that we're not taking trades that aren't really ideal for what we're doing. So again, it shows you by the settings stayed the same. We're just adding additional filters inside of it to help us manage our risk. We've added in the ADX filter here. So again, the ADX filter is another great way to understand, just another filter to be able to help you smooth out your equity curve, manage your losses, manage your trades as you go through it. Again, just a great solid way to do that. And then we have our VIX filter. So you can change the minutes that it's on. You can change the volatility and the minimum for it. And you can run same thing. Since the primary settings were the same across the board, we just add these additional filters in, and it gives us the ability to change and adjust them as we see fit. So the idea behind this is that we're able to, once again, manage our trades. And we added this one here, which is only take the first signal after it. So in other words, as trade break out above or below the settings inside of it, it allows me to say, hey, I only want to take the first one, which is typically the strongest setting, as profits tend to run up or down. And just helps, again, avoids the chop. And here's a great example. Equity curve on this one's far better. And you can tell it takes far fewer trades as it goes on throughout the day. And that's the idea behind this, is by simply adding in these filters to it, you can really customize how much risk you have inside of this. So again, by adding in two of these together, say let's add the higher time frame filter and the first only, for instance, then again, I'm able to really filter out what could be good ideas and bad ideas, and just again smoothing our equity curve. Doesn't mean we don't take losses. These are clearly some lost days inside of it, but we're simply managing how much of the loss we're taking and how our trades are managed along the lines of it. So again, the idea behind this is that you can use this and shift and adjust it as things change. You may see a lot of volatility in the market, and then you may want to use the VIX filter to help filter out some of that volatility that happens. But again, the idea behind this is to give you tons of tools that you can adjust and really customize your strategy for what you want to do. Whether this is a live account or it's a prop account, the idea, again, is to make sure that we're adjusting as we go into it. So again, that was the whole point of this today, was just to kind of talk about it a little bit and make life a little bit easier, and to kind of showcase some of the settings that we've adjusted inside of it. So anyway, Strata Protocol version 2, it's going to be released later today. All the settings will be inside of our WAP community, so you can check it out. And again, the idea behind this is that we don't believe there should be a one strategy and you simply upload it and hope that it works out for you. We want you to have control and really take charge of your trading versus rely on us to do everything. We do help you with the settings. We tell you what settings we're running as a community. That's the whole point of the community, but we're simply not telling you this is the strategy, use it or lose it. We want you to have control over your own destiny with this. Trading changes the way that we look at the world, and we want you to have the right tools in place of it. So again, Strata Protocol version 2 with additional filters inside of it, and you can tell just from these changes we did live how it can adjust your equity curve and how we simply made these improvements along that line. So again, we hope you guys enjoyed it. We are looking forward to you out, and again, we hope you decide that you want to join the community. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.